Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. Up first, a lot of rain here over the southeast coast over the weekend, and some records set. The top part here, the record rainfall, Pelican, almost 2 inches of rain falling, and that beat by a fair amount, 1.20 inches that fell in 1982. Otherwise, Haines, 1.5 inches or just under that, about that amount, 1.43 inches, and that beat a record going back to 2000. Otherwise, some of the other rainfall amounts can see here, Haines Airport, 2.37 inches, and that broke the record that occurred back in 1956. And the airport at Juneau, a little over inch and a half, and that broke a 1968 record back in June. And Yakutat, which I remember quite well, and Yakutat had about 3.25 inches in a 24-hour period, and that beat a record that was set in 1975. So less precipitation there today, and as far as breakup goes, really pretty much not much going on. It's breaking up very nicely this year. All the rivers here south of the Brooks Range open. Still some ice here, Noatak River, mostly ice out toward the mouth, and the North Slope rivers are unknown to, looks like unknown to some open now for that area. So moving on to the satellite imagery today, you can see the storm pushing right up there to the northeast, but the front trailing back to the southwest, keeping rain heaviest here over the southern areas, picking up an additional 1 to 2 inches or more down there in the, again, the 24-hour period ending this afternoon. And then lighter rain back to the northwest, a little more showery, but lots of clouds. Looks like a few breaks showing up around Sitka this afternoon. Bigger breaks just west of Yakutat, up into the Copper River Basin there, eastern Copper River Basin, as the low center pulls northward. Right in this area, as it gets north of the Alaska Range there, you can kind of see the circulation well east of Fairbanks or over by Eagle. And we've got another band here. This is the old frontal boundary that came in off the Bering Sea yesterday, early weekend, and just a lot of clouds, but just scattered showers here across the deltas, and another more extensive area sliding southeastward there across Kodiak Island, Kachemak Bay in the western Alaska Range. That was a little bit more continuous rain into Bristol Bay, northern Bristol Bay from the southern Kuskokwim Valley. A short break right behind that over the Alaska Peninsula here and along Bristol Bay. Next system out to the west, catching up quite rapidly, pushing rain in across the Pribilofs, moisture flowing eastward here in across the eastern Aleutians, back out where the main front is there around Adak and Atka, right in this area, actually pretty well west of Adak at this point, and up to the northeast, again, precipitation with some isolated thunderstorms occurring here right near the circulation over toward the border, but no widespread outbreak. Sunshine back to the northwest and northwest of that, and no change again up along the Arctic coast with the light winds. You can see the cloud mass down here gradually shifting eastward there, and these breaks that are just off the coast should start arriving there in those southern areas later on tonight to a certain extent, but it doesn't look like you'll be out of the rain or the showers at least for another 24 hours. Otherwise today, still a lot of moisture here over the Panhandle with that trough, the main front well off to the northeast, and the heaviest amounts occurring today over the southern areas. And then we've got this weakening washing out front coming across Kodiak Island, rainfall there up into Kachemak Bay along the southern Alaska Range, really scattering out scattered light precipitation across the southwest interior. picking it up again up across St. Lawrence Island and to the south a little bit, and then farther west, the main low center hanging back out to the west there, but that rotating a trough. So look for those showers. If they're not currently, they will be shortly. Another round of rain or showery conditions with gusty winds rolling into the Pribilof Islands. And then down to the south, kind of breezy with scattered showers here from the eastern Aleutians, tending to taper off out towards Shemya. And for tonight, we've got, well, some of these scattered thunderstorms will continue into this evening early and then should taper off as that low pressure center just actually dissipates into a trough or troughs out here over the northeast interior. Keeps skies mostly cloudy with some scattered showers here over the eastern areas, back down in toward the central interior, then westward here. Actually, this is the old frontal boundary, continuing to slide northward there. So mostly cloudy, scattered showers along that boundary, on out into the Bering Strait. And low pressure here off the southeast coast there with a kind of a front develops there along it, or it could be a trough, but it looked together enough I drew it in as a front. So it stays wet over the southern southeast coast tonight. Again, that kind of rolling on in. Drier though up to the north, so from roughly Elfin Cove over to possibly Juneau, going to be right on the edge, and definitely drier on up into up the highway there towards Skagway and into the Yukon. Variably cloudy here, the southeast interior to the North Gulf Coast, drying out south central Alaska. Lingering showers along the Alaska Range. North Slope, Arctic Coast, about the same. Flurries central and east side with low clouds, fog, and clouds down to the Brooks Range. And then the next system here, that low center, tracking northeastward, southwest to northeast flow here. Another surge of moisture rolling up the frontal boundary. So a good shot of rain is going to come on in across the Alaska Peninsula this evening, on up into the southwest interior tonight, with the frontal zone moving to roughly about this position late tonight, about 3 or 4 in the morning. And then southwesterly flow continues, so this doesn't really make much of a push eastward there with the flow southwest to northeast. Just a lot of rainfall in across the southwest interior, spreading northward across the Seward Peninsula and even eastward here just south of the Brooks Range. This will be more showery or convective in nature, possible isolated thunderstorms either side of that trough, cutting through the central interior in that area. Nice day tomorrow, hopefully here for the south central Alaska area, Cook Inlet into Prince William Sound. Partly to mostly cloudy or sunny. A little breezy too. This gradient here along the coast, look for those turning and arm winds to kick up pretty good with that, as well as possibly some channeled areas there. Otherwise, showers on the decrease here from northwest to southeast as the trough slides off to the, or moves off in the same direction there in toward British Columbia. So it's going to hang on through much of the day here over the southern panhandle, gradually tapering off, maybe some afternoon showers developing up in the extreme north. But Yakutat could be partly sunny and dry, and then again afternoon showers here developing over the Copper River Basin up to the Alaska Range. Otherwise, maybe some clearing on the north slope, but really not a lot of sunshine showing up. Could be here for Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula areas possibly. And then on Tuesday night, that whole system continues to push eastward. And it looks like good chance of rain coming in tomorrow night and continuing through Wednesday here. The heaviest amounts from Kodiak Island, of course, southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, Seward on up into western Prince William Sound with this pressure pattern. Higher pressure here over the eastern Gulf of Alaska and the lower pressure back to the west. So you've got upslope flow there on the east side. So that means less precipitation for Cook Inlet from Anchor Point on up to Turnagain, or actually all the way up to Palmer with that easterly wind flow. But I think the moisture layer will be deep enough that just about everywhere will see some rain. And that'll extend back northwest along the front across the Kuskokwim Valley. And a good chance of rain across a big chunk of the northwest interior. And of course, any elevation at all there in the Brooks Range, that's going to fall in the form of snow on out to the western Arctic coast. Probably should have put some mixed or at least some blue in there for the area from Point Lay on down to Cape Lisburne. Otherwise, another low here south of St. Lawrence Island, and westerly flow around that will keep sending surges of showers and a pickup in the winds here along the southwest coast. One right through here, but looks like a better organized one back out to the west, swinging across the Pribilofs on Wednesday and Wednesday afternoon. In between, something of a break, so look for some partly sunny skies for Bristol Bay with the showers ending in the morning. So a pretty good afternoon from King Salmon on down the peninsula there all the way to possibly maybe Cold Bay, and then those showers roll in. And then behind that, even a bigger area of dry conditions here over the western Aleutians. Some moisture the next system just getting onto the map late in the day, way out west, not even reaching Shimia. Temperatures this afternoon across the Panhandle, upper 40s to mid 50s with lower 50s here with the constant rain over the southern areas. 48 Elfin Cove, Skagway though up to 56. Cool 51 both at Yakutat and Cordova. Even cooler 50 degrees both Kenai and Seward. 55 in Palmer, 56 Homer. Upper 40s, lower 50s there for Kodiak Island. Mid 50s Seward Peninsula. Same thing for the Copper River Basin. 50s, clouds, rain all across the Tanana Valley, back toward Tanana, even the 40-mile country, but Eagle did manage to get up to 57. And for Fort Yukon, 50 degrees, but much warmer, 64 over at Bettles, and then back down to 48 Anatuvik. The Arctic coast, holding there, central coast in the 20s, but most other areas getting up toward 30 and trying to bust the freeze point. Otherwise, quite a range here from 40 at Kivalina to just 36 at Kotzebue, 42 for Nome, and a 53-degree reading at McGrath. Otherwise, the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, all in the 40s, 33 at Savunga, lower 40s for the Pribilofs in Alaska, up to 50 degrees, mid-40s everywhere else. Lows tonight, cooler in the Copper River Basin as it usually is in the higher valleys there. Otherwise, mid-40s up over the northeast, falling into the mid-30s out toward the coastline to lower 30s from Nunivak Island on up toward Gamble. Upper 30s Pribilof, central western Aleutians, lower 40s eastern Aleutians on up toward and across to Bristol Bay. For highs for tomorrow, not all that great, up 55 to 60, call it for the eastern interior. On down into the Susitna Valley, 50s all the way down to the coast. 50s in there, 60 for the Panhandle and 40s out to the west, and about the same for the Arctic coast. Flying weather, IFR there from much of the North Slope and from about the central coast, say Wainwright, eastward into Mackenzie River Delta. IFR expected tomorrow, and a chunk here from the Bering Strait south of St. Lawrence Island, and then along the central Aleutians, all the way eastward here to the Alaska Peninsula. Marginal VFR for the southeast coast early tomorrow morning will break out with the moisture pushing off to the southeast, so conditions will be following in with VFR across much of the coastline, hanging in over the southern areas and back up along the border. IFR pretty prevalent southwest Kodiak Island, south of the peninsula into the Fox Islands, back up to Cape Neuenam, and some hit and miss stuff over the northern Bering Sea. Marginal for the eastern Arctic coast. Passes Anatuvik and Adigan, both VFR tomorrow. And the western Alaska Range, Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, moisture sliding northeastward there, going marginal, Lake Clark, Merrill, and rainy. And that'll be on the western entrance this time where the lowest conditions will start to occur. And then for windy, hopefully VFR the entire day. It won't be cloud free. Hopefully what clouds there are will be the VFR variety. Isabel VFR, Mentasta, same forecast. Portage, Tanita, VFR. And for Chilcoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, 4,000 feet, not all that high for this time of the year, but a little bit shade higher there for the Yukon, 6,000 feet. Definitely cooler back out here over the Bering Sea, and a pretty good gradient now established over the Aleutians. That usually indicates in this orientation good southwest flow there that'll be driving that next frontal system right on in for the rain. And with that with that moisture comes icing. Areas of light to isolated moderate rime there, exiting the eastern Aleutians, spreading northeastward across Bristol Bay. Leftover stuff up here in the north, and also leftover down over the southern southeast coast. For winds aloft, there's that strong jet, 140 knots right out of the southwest, cold upper low over the northern Bering Sea. Wind flow initially splitting right here, so we should have a good day east of that split. South central Alaska, showers gradually ending down to the south, but again, that pattern shifting eastward, so that'll drive the front right on in. And for 9,000 feet, hint of a split flow right through here with off to the northeast and then off to the northeast, but to the south, 25 to 30 knots. Light up over the north coast all the way down across the Panhandle. And at 3,000 feet, westerlies 25 to 30 knots. Southern Bering and Aleutian turns southerly up to 45 knots here around St. Matthew Island, dropping back to 15. Much lighter again, but still southwest 20 working into the western and central interior. 25 knot winds right off the southeast coast, 30 knots across Kodiak. And with turbulence, occasional moderate chop here along the Alaska Peninsula south side, and then mostly on the north side here of things from Unalaska Island in toward Falls Pass, maybe Cold Bay. Otherwise, light to isolated moderate chop over the Bering, St. Lawrence Island, the Pribilofs, and the entire length of the Aleutian chain. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
In Valdez, all the waves were locally generated. Tremendous land movement during the quake initially caused the water to literally stand up and collapse into town. Then, 93 million cubic yards of glacial deposits under the dock area slumped and generated a 30 to 40 foot wave. Freddie Christopherson, then 13, described what he saw.
Danny Peaks and I went down on the dock to see the boat and load, and then we were leaving. Earthquake started, and then Danny and I ran. I looked back and I saw the boat go up. Then it took off, and then I saw the dock go up, and then we kept running up to Stiff Smelters. I got a ride with some guy in a pan, and we went out to 6 Mile Hill. Then we waited for a while. Then we went back in.
4 decades later, that memory remains burned into Fred Christopherson's soul.
It was the biggest, blackest wave that I'd ever seen. I was turning around watching it with my little buddies hollering at me up the road here, "Run, run, don't look, run."
I looked back and I saw the ship. It was about 30 feet out of the water, and the stern was in the air, and the bow was pointing right down into the water, and I could see the prop slowly turning and water coming off of it.
Great big crevasse opened up, and I didn't know if I was going to make it.
The longshoremen and the visitors that were on the dock running this way, trying to get to the shore, and it broke away from the shore, and they ran this way to go to the boat to look for some protection, and there just wasn't any protection. They just finally the dock all busted up, and they all disappeared, never to be seen again.
They were gone in just a moment.
I just couldn't imagine the people that were on the dock and what they the last minutes of their lives and how they must have suffered knowing what was going to happen.
A short time later, at the far end of Port Valdez, the Chute Bay glacial moraine above and below the waterline avalanched and collapsed into the bay. It generated a 220-foot wave. It was the tallest wave recorded anywhere during the '64 quake. Delbert Ferrier and his father were in a skiff a short distance away when the monster passed by.
That's when I saw it wipe out, take all the concrete off the light, wipe that out, and go over the top of that little island and go in front of us, and it was starting to break on top. So, but we were just getting the big rollers. We were going up and down, you know, not knowing what the hell was going to happen. And that just missed us. We got more of the roller part. Had we been back there, well, you know, it'd been gone.
By the time this wave reached Valdez, it was still 40 feet high, but it did the greatest damage to the town. In the years following the disaster, Valdez was rebuilt on more solid ground about 3 miles away. Tsunamis are created by the sudden displacement of water, usually caused by very powerful earthquakes that violently change the elevation of the seafloor. Tsunamis also can be caused by above or underwater landslides, which are often generated by earthquakes. Though far less likely, tsunamis may also be caused by the eruption of submarine volcanoes, meteor impacts, or nuclear explosions. When a tsunami is generated in the open ocean, the water is so deep that the wave is barely detectable, maybe no more than a foot high at the surface. But it can travel across the ocean at jetliner speeds of 500 to 600 miles per hour. As that same wave reaches shallower water, it will slow down to about 1/10 of the speed and may grow more than 10 times in height. If the lower part of the wave reaches shore first, the incoming surge may actually be preceded by water flowing out to sea, exposing the ocean bottom or emptying channels and even huge bays. Most think that a tsunami appears as an enormous cresting wave, but in fact, most tsunamis come in as a fast-moving surge of water, like a monster high tide in fast motion. In addition to the 1964 tsunamis, two other tsunami events in Alaska stand out. In 1958, the highest tsunami recorded in modern history occurred in Lituya Bay in southeast Alaska. An earthquake dislodged a huge chunk of a mountain, which crashed into the bay. The impact created a wave that splashed 1,700 feet up a mountainside, completely denuding a slope of all trees and soil. One fisherman was killed when the wave swept his boat out to sea. In 1946, a strong earthquake in the Aleutian Islands that probably generated an underwater landslide created a huge tsunami that wiped out the Scotch-Cap lighthouse, perched 40 feet above sea level. 5 people were killed. This same wave traveled silently and undetected across the Pacific Ocean to the Hawaiian Islands, where it killed another 159 unsuspecting people. It was this disaster that led to the formation of the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center.
The U.S. National Tsunami Hazard Mitigation Program is the educational program in which communities are advised that they in fact live in an area in which tsunamis might be expected sometime in the future to attack, and to educate the population that in fact there may not be much warning time.
In this particular program, it's a partnership between 3 agencies, U.S. Geological Survey, seismologist expertise, NOAA, which is oceanographic expertise, and FEMA, which is mitigation expertise. So those are the 3 partners that are working on the federal side. On the state side is the 5 states affected. That's Alaska and Hawaii, Washington, Oregon, and California.
Here at UEF, at the Geophysical Institute, we are involved in 3 of the aspects of this national program. Those consist of warning, risk assessment, and risk mitigation. The warning aspect that we participate in, it uses seismology.
At the Geophysical Institute, scientists monitor earthquake data from several hundred seismic sensing stations across Alaska. When a seismic disturbance occurs, this data is instantly transmitted to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's West Coast and Alaska Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, Alaska. Scientists on 24-hour call quickly analyze that data, along with data from their own network of sensors, and decide whether or not they should issue a tsunami warning.
When we see a large earthquake has occurred and it's occurred near the coast, we'll issue a warning to those who could be affected by the wave within a certain amount of time. And then we'll monitor the wave to see if it really was dangerous or not, and if it was dangerous, then we'll expand the warning to all the people that it may be dangerous for.
Welcome back. We got a pretty energetic system that's going to keep it wet over the southern panhandle tomorrow, and along with that, gale force northwesterlies, 35 knots, 10-foot seas in the south coast. Small craft advisories all the way back up to the north there where they become more westerly. Northern Lynn Canal becoming south at 20 in the afternoon, otherwise north to northwest, 15 knots inside waters. Outlook for Wednesday, lighter or stronger winds for Lynn Canal northern, a little bit more of a sea breeze in the afternoon. Small craft advisories now south coast, and 15 to 20 knots on the north coast with 10 to 20 out of the northwest inside waters. Prince William Sound light southwest 10 tomorrow, but up to 25 knots here for northern Cook Inlet. Stronger gusts coming out of Turnagain Arm. Westerlies 20 knots, North Gulf Coast. Turn southwest 20 to 25, Kodiak Island and Kachemak Bay. Outlook for Wednesday, small craft advisories south of the Forelands all the way down across Shelikof Strait, east side of Kodiak up to the western North Gulf Coast, otherwise southeast 15 for Prince William Sound. Bristol Bay south 20 knots. I've got some gales here from Cape Sarachev to Castle Cape, and then 30-knot winds there on up to Sitkinak, all out of the southwest, southerlies 20-25 there for the north side of the peninsula. And then on Wednesday, west 25 knots, southwest 20, 6-foot seas for Bristol Bay, and southwesterly small craft advisories here on the south side of the peninsula with 12 to 13-foot seas. And for the eastern Aleutians, Unalaska Island here, south to southwest, 35 knotters on the Pacific side, and then southwesterly, 30 to 35 here, blowing in toward Nikolsky, turn westerly for Adak and Atka, and that basic pattern on out to the west. And then for Wednesday, just about westerly everywhere except south of Atka Island and Adak, 25 knots there with the lightest winds out west. Small craft advisories everywhere though, with those 8 to 10-foot seas. And for the southwest coast, southwest 20, 7 to 8-foot seas. Light southeast just 15, St. Lawrence Island. Same thing for the Pribilofs from the south, but small craft advisories there for St. Matthew Island to the west. And for Wednesday, no change there. Go 11 feet in the seas, 15 for the Pribilofs, southwest 20, 7 to 8-foot seas rolling into the coast, and south 20 for St. Lawrence Island. Arctic coast, east side, east at 10, northeast from the central coast, only 15 here, turn northerly from Cape Thompson or Cape Beaufort on down to the Bering Strait. And for Wednesday, northeast 10, pretty light, becoming variable to southeast 15. And then easterlies 20 knots, west side of the central coast, back down to 15, all the way over to Demarcation Point. And for tonight, again, got this system slipping on down to the southeast, so rain continues over the southern panhandle there. More rain sliding northeastward here into the interior, extending all the way back out into the Aleutians. Dying front and trough keeps some showers in the interior. And tomorrow, that moisture southwest to northeast, a little eastward progress, not a whole lot, maybe reaching the southern Alaska range. And showers ending, but not completely there for the southern southeast coast. Could see some isolated thunderstorms over the interior. And the outlook for Wednesday, the whole thing shifts eastward. Rain south central Alaska, Kodiak Island, back across all of the northwest interior.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.